Oops.
While we're waiting for LinkedIn to go live.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, how you guys doing? Doing all right?
I've got a call at 10.
Yeah, I have a haircut 10:30, so I need to go quarter 20 past. I couldn't find any other slots.
So that
yeah.
Sorry about that.
We try to stay on time. It's hard.
We have to.
Yeah.
Because I have
too much to talk about.
Yeah.
All right. It still hasn't started. All right, hi everyone. If you're joining us now, we're just waiting for LinkedIn to go live, and then we'll be getting stuck into another packed agenda.
Yeah.
It's hard to choose, right?
Yeah, there's a lot. It's
well, there's a demolition job going on. That's really interesting.
All right, we are live. So, welcome to the Shit Show. My name's Andrea Edwards.
I'm David Coe.
And at the far end, you have me, Richard Basolato. Welcome.
Yeah, and Joe's not with us today because he's doing an event in KL, so we'll miss him. And there's actually a lot going on in the AI space that I want to plug his brain about, so we'll have to save it for next week. I don't know if you've seen some of the even Steve Bannon is calling for what is it? Not artificial intelligence. It's there's another word linked to it. Anyway, calling on a reprieve. So we shall see what happens. Yeah, because do you know the word I mean? It's something artificial intelligence, but anyway, it's the one that it's perceived as a threat. So we've got two guests on the show today. We're going to talk about sustainable tourism and community building, which is something we've talked about many times in different ways. Ollie is our community building expert, but he's not here at the moment because he's having trouble getting on the link. So we'll see how we go. And David, would you like to introduce our first guest?
Yes, absolutely. Let's bring her on. Hello, Sadaf.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Hi. Good. So just want to say hi to Sadaf. Can we arrange this so that we also have the rest of us around?
Oh.
Yes, maybe that's the right thing.
No, stick here for now. Let me do this bit.
Yeah, you do this bit. Okay. But anyway, so Sadaf, welcome to be here. You're from Pakistan, and we met a few years ago, and and among the different things that came up was really kind of the activities and things within Pakistan and the enthusiasm of the youth that you were very much expressing at that time, especially within aspects of kind of the tourism and things. But I just want to ask, if I may, just to sort of say, can you give an introduction to yourself? In particular, kind of your whole family, I think, has been involved with that kind of community aspects right from the time before it became like, the hype words, as it were. So do you want to give kind of an introduction to yourself and how it led you into the path where you are now?
Thank you so much, David and Andrea and Richard, for inviting me to your show today. And this topic, sustainable tourism and community building, is very close to my heart. So for the viewers who don't know me, I'm Sadaf Khalid Khan, and I belong from Pakistan. How I ended up working on this sustainable tourism and climate challenges that we talk about today is that my journey started from 2010, when the first time Pakistan was hit with floods up in the northern areas of Pakistan in Kalam, KPK, and where my family, my own mom, she was stranded for 5 days. And not only her, but there were about 5,000 tourists in the local community had to be rescued by helicopters because the destruction was massive and there was no road communication, and the network was all swept away by floods. So I was in tourism and hospitality already, working at my resort, the Walnut Heights, and working in a travel agency in Islamabad promoting tourism. But then I started to do research why the climatic challenges are happening, what's going wrong, engaging with the community, mobilizing campaigns, educating them. So we're going to talk about that later, David, but that's how I ended up and started working on sustainable tourism and community building.
Sorry, I muted myself. So this is my part here. My knowledge about Pakistan is very scarce, and I never thought of it as a tourist destination. So, do you want to give some kind of connection about how it is a tourist destination? Is this predominantly amongst Pakistani themselves, or is this something that's actually much more across Asia, or something which would be interesting also to others?
So Pakistan is a beautiful country, as we know on a geographical map. If you see, the location is between Central Asia, China, bordering with Iran, Middle East, Dubai. So Pakistan is known for basically adventure tourism. We have the K2, that is the second highest peak in the world. A lot of adventure climbers from Europe, they come to Pakistan and for these expeditions. But having said that, Pakistan has to offer much more than adventure tourism. We are also working on promoting the Buddhist tourism. We have UNESCO sites in Pakistan. Recently, a lot of Buddhist monks have started coming to Pakistan from Japan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, China. And then at the same time, because you know Pakistan's history with the neighboring countries, we're also promoting religious tourism. The Sikh for the Silk pilgrimage, we have the Kartarpur corridor open. A lot of Sikh pilgrims are coming to Pakistan to visit their sacred sites. And as well as we've got the Indus civilization, the Mohenjo-daro, the UNESCO sites, as I was mentioning, in Pakistan. And then we have Mughal history neighboring with India and Pakistan, a lot of historical sites in Lahore. A lot of people don't know, and the museums and the heritage that we have, from forts, old forts to castles. So Pakistan as a country, as you was asking David, we have a lot to offer as a tourist destinations. For beach holidays, we're just starting recently. We've got some new beach resorts opened near Karachi, and Gwadar is another upcoming beach tourist destination, part of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which called the CPEC project. So yeah, so Pakistan has a lot to offer. And also to your question you asked, we have domestic tourism blooming, but we also have foreign tourism coming in, all parts from the world. As I was mentioning, Europeans are the most, like, they visit Pakistan quite often. But we have, as I said, now tourists coming from Malaysia is another tourist, like they're coming into Pakistan because they don't have mountains and that kind of climate. So that's another country that's exploring Pakistan. Yeah, over to you, David.
I'm gonna bring Ollie in, but we'll introduce him in a minute. So we made it, which is good. The 2010 event that your mum got stuck in, was that the first time something of that scale had happened, or is that something that historically has been happening before? Just to give us a sense of change in the environment.
Yeah, so that was massive floods in Pakistan. 2005 was the first earthquake natural calamity that came, and then 2010, just after exactly 5 years, that scale of floods we all experienced for the first time. So we were not really prepared for it. Even our government, our local communities, the tourists, and it was like a massive floods, which was a horrific experience for everyone, for that matter. And we were trying to cope and adapt, and like everybody was in a state of shock, even the Pakistan as a country. And we were getting all these international donor countries from US, Turkey, China, neighboring countries to help Pakistan for that kind of calamity. Even Angelina Jolie, as a celebrity, she came and visited the camps in Northwest Frontier, that was called then as now as Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, to help the flood affectees.
And then a couple of years ago, you obviously had the devastating floods, which took out 40% of the country. And then just more recently, we saw those other floods. So it's obviously something that's escalating, and it's wiping out not just people and their homes, but also agriculture as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. 2022 floods I personally experienced again in that Kalam Swat community in the north parts of Pakistan. And again, the pattern was the same: 5 days of massive rain, cloudburst, and then again the bridges were swept away, and we were had to be rescued by the helicopter. And recently, by 2025, Gilgit-Baltistan and Punjab province, Lahore, they were the most affected. And as you said, Pakistan is an agriculture country. It was a lot of economic loss in terms of agriculture, the infrastructure loss, and as well as the tourism and hospitality figures went down to almost 45% because people like watching news all over, even domestic tourism declined because people were not feeling safe to travel to these areas. So Pakistan has been, unfortunately, the climatic challenges that we talk of. Every year it's getting worse with the figures that we see. And recently, our Prime Minister addressed at the United Nations the climate conference in New York, and he was pledging US and other international donor countries to help Pakistan for community resilient building and infrastructure development, as we talk about. Yeah.
Is it happening? Like, or is corruption sort of getting in the way of doing what needs to be done? Sorry, David.
Yeah, I mean, yes, corruption is there as we speak of, but then a lot of private sector, like I would talk about the youth movements, they're quite active. Pakistan's population, 66% of the population is the youth aging from 25 to 35. They're very active in mobilizing and doing small community projects for Pakistan. But having said that, the government has to also play its role with the donor agencies. There's a new project in Pakistan, which is just recently starting, calling the Emerging Pakistan, which is led by WWF. That's a huge project. They've started in Punjab. And recently, I had a project in Gilgit-Baltistan. I conducted a Silk Route Festival where where I conducted trainings for the women entrepreneurs about sustainable tourism and how the climatic challenges are affecting that. So that's a start, and let's see how it goes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think this brings to some of the things that you've been writing about, that within the Pakistani press and so on, really calling for that coherence of policy. And I think one of the things you mentioned that you've mentioned before is really where tourism builds and the problems that can cause itself also. Do you want to kind of elaborate a little bit more? Because I think, when people think of tourism, they're always a little bit torn between the idea that actually it's great to have sustainable tourism in some sense, but inevitably you always end up in a situation where you destroy more than you contribute.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I've been recently writing in articles. I mean, I've just addressing directly to the Prime Minister of Pakistan the urgent need of the sustainable tourism policy. Because at the same time, I think it's not just Pakistan. If you look at the global climatic changes, no country, even a developed country, they're not prepared for it. What we require right now is that policies are also very important, but implementation of policies are important. That is what is missing in a country like Pakistan. When I talk about, let's start with the domestic tourism. I mean, the NDMA, we have a National Disaster Management Authority. With the social media, with the mobile messages, on the TV ads, we are running and educating people not to travel during the monsoon seasons when it's on high alert, and we can't really predict when there's a cloud burst, and there will be flash flooding in those areas, especially in the north. But domestic tourists, they still travel and they don't change their plans. So the problem that we talk about, it has to be from both ways. The people needs to understand the domestic tourists, foreign tourists, they know where travel, they follow the news, they're responsible. And not only that, David, when we were talking discussions during COP28 in Dubai in the online sessions, is that littering, plastic pollution, destroying the beautiful surroundings, that's also a responsibility of a domestic tourist or any tourist visiting those areas. So the responsibility lies between, obviously, the government, the people who are in the hospitality tourism sector, and the tourist visiting those areas. So we can't just blame one person. It has to be a collective effort as a whole when we talk about these problems.
Yeah.
And at that period, you point back to the COP28, which is I guess we're about to come into COP30, so that'll be 2 years ago. Just trying to do my mental maths here. And you you connected us with a number of people and their projects, and they varied along in the different ways. What do you see as kind of the sort of stories from there that actually people elsewhere can also pick up, and maybe, you know, when they find that, when they think about the tourism, this aspect of responsibility, you know, you actually mentioned about, it's not just the policy, the implementation that involves the people traveling as much as the people who are providing the things there.
Yes. So recently, I just heard about this very interesting project by a community leader up in the Gilgit-Baltistan, which we are nearing with the China-Punjab Pass border. The cloudburst, he came up with this detector. He tried to create it on his own, a scientific research. He's a young student, I guess. And it helped alarm his small community of around 50 to 100 people when there's a cloudburst or there's kind of the sensors were detecting that. And then he tried to evacuate his own community, and then they were saved from that flash flooding this year. It was, I think, in Al Jazeera and all those news as well. I'll share that article with you. So that's just a small story. If a community, if a student of a climatic research and on these subjects, if he could develop that detector, my question is, why can't the governments, or why can't the other companies try to do the same? I mean, this is just an example, recent example that I'm sharing. So I guess it's the responsibility, like the youth movements are there, but of course you need funding for those projects. But then when we talk about sustainability, I feel, David, it's not just about the money. It's we can create sustainable projects. Remember when we just had a chat about educating people, the local entrepreneurs, the women, we can give them a business model of just developing these bags for recycling, and they can use the same bags for getting groceries. You don't need millions and millions of dollars to start such kind of projects. A lot of non-profits, like I would like to name Aga Khan Development Corporation, AKDN. That's the biggest, the success stories of successful projects, especially in Gilgit-Baltistan. They're doing quite well to educate women entrepreneurs, helping the youth for small projects, but we need many more like them to work on these issues.
But then, so, you know, one of the things you were talking about was the cloudburst, but the other big risk, obviously, in Pakistan, India, right across the Himalayas is the glacial lake outbursts. And there's thousands of lakes at risk in Pakistan. But then the other thing that you were talking about is just the waste that comes with tourism and the responsibility for everyone. So, you know, I was living in Phuket, and there's all these 6-star resorts on these islands that you have to catch a boat to. And they don't have any waste disposal, and there's no way of getting the waste from the island, so they just burn it, or it just ends up in the ocean, right? So when you think about the beautiful Himalayan mountains just full of, I mean, we've seen Everest Base Camp and how much human waste is left behind. So it really needs that government and community and, like you say, the tourist commitment to just not taking waste, like not making it part of the experience at all. And I don't think, apart from maybe Bhutan, I don't think I've seen any country even remotely start looking to tackle that. Are you seeing any movement there at all from a waste perspective?
Well, I tried in my capacity to train how segregation of waste is. Not really. So recently, the only project that I heard about, you know, the Nestle Water Company, that's a big company in Pakistan, and they created non-plastic Gilgit-Baltistan Hunza, and they want to recycling all the plastic bottles, water bottles, to make it plastic free. So this is just a beginning of, I think, what we talk about, these plastic pollution, because Pakistan needs recycling plants. Even in the capital city where I belong to, Islamabad, we have municipalities. It's just that we don't have that. All the waste goes to the landfill sites. And then there's a whole mafia working on, they don't let these international companies or private companies come into Pakistan to work. So that's another subject in detail we'll talk about. But as of today, I just heard a lot of these Swiss tourists, they just were visiting a week back, and they were picking all the littering, all the garbage from these beautiful base camps in Pakistan. It was all over the social media. If the foreign tourist can do, why can't we do it? So yeah, we need bins in those areas. We need to educate people. people, there's a lot can be done. Nothing is impossible when we speak of these issues, but it's just the will and the motivation from all sides, from the government, from the private people, from the community, from the tourists who are traveling to these beautiful areas.
I'd like to bring one more point that I think you mentioned before. I mean, we're seeing at the moment kind of the White House being knocked down and being replaced along. And I remember you made a comment before about hotels which had been devastated by floods and stuff, and people rebuild them in that way too. And there's some and how is that kind of is that an opportunity? Are people taking that as an opportunity to implement the kind of sustainable policies? So,
well, the hotels building infrastructure laws, as I said, we have the laws in place, but unfortunately, the hotels built, the local investors there, even the floods, the hotel was swept away with flood, but they will build it on the same place near the river, which is blocking the way when there's a flooding going on. So, I mean, there is a movement going on, especially in KP, I saw where my resort is. The encroachment, the government is trying to go, and they're like just giving them warnings that we're going to destroy your hotel if you're not going to destroy it yourself, because that's creating a lot of trouble for the whole of that area and community. So what I would suggest, when they're building hotel, the government is watching there. Why do they allow to build? Because there's huge investment in that hotel, right? And then when such incidents happen, the government just come and they want to just destroy it. It's not fair on both sides because there is an investment involved. It should be planned. The planning of those tourism places, keeping in the climatic challenges, is the need of the hour, what I feel, not only in the northern parts, even in the cities. I mean, Islamabad this time in the very posh town, Bahria town, is a residential area. A father and a daughter were swept away in a car because of the flash flooding. So the urban planning, when we talk about smart sustainable cities relating to sustainable development goals in a country like Pakistan, I think when Pakistan was 50, 60 years back, I think the urgent need of planning is very important when we are developing these resorts, David.
Yeah. I think people outside of this region don't really understand how anyone with money can bribe anyone they want to build anything they want anywhere they want. You know, it's just a common problem. In Thailand,
we see that in the US right now.
Well, on a different scale, right? In Thailand, all you have to do is you rent an elephant and you put an elephant on a piece of land. And if they don't hassle you, after a while, you build like a bamboo shack around the elephant. And then as time goes on, your structure gets progressively more solid to the point where you basically, nobody hassles you. It's an interesting process.
Yeah. Having said that, I mean, it was all over the news. I'll share the links with you. So this, I mean, very dear, not friends and colleagues, they built a hotel at Athabad Lake in Hunza, which is neighboring China border. And it's just on the lake. You can see, even as a tourist, it's just where any a flash flooding or a glacier melt or any landsliding can happen. And they took permissions. It's called the Luxus Grand Hotel. And this year, thrice it was hit by these, the glaciers and these small kind of flash flooding. And it was all over the news. And they took the permission from the government. And also all the sewage waste was going in the Athabad Lake, which is such a beautiful lake. So it's just that these are the educated, rich people. They do open these hotels there. But then, having said, as Andrea was saying, you can see it in front of your eyes, but still, it's just like they just want to make money and business out of it. They don't care about environment or their own infrastructure damage or losses as well.
I think it's really interesting, isn't it? Because it goes back to that responsibility. So as you were describing this, I was thinking, well, maybe it's good to have some kind of like an index or review of kind of the impact of a hotel for people booking. And then, of course, it goes to the point you were making earlier that the people go there when you said, if there were weather reports of potential cloudbursts and things in Pakistan, people still go along with their schedule. So they're not really have that awareness or concern, even when they themselves may be the people caught in it.
Yeah.
That seems a pretty. What's the driver behind that? What do you think is the reason why? Is it because the holidays are so scarce? Is it something like that, or?
Yeah, so domestic tourism, as we speak of international traveling, only the rich class, elite class, as we call in Pakistan, 1% or maybe I can say just 2-3% can afford going international vacations. The rest, they're all domestic tourists. So in Pakistan, as we speak of, the summers, the temperature soars up to 45, almost now some places to 47 degrees. It's so hot during the summers. And we have summer vacations. The schools are off, as you guys have the 3 months or 2 months summer vacations. Everybody wants to experience a kind of cold weather when they all go to these northern areas just to have a breather from the hot temperatures. And then we have electricity crisis as well. Everybody cannot afford an air con, in Pakistan. So they just want to go for a week or 10 days, take their family, their kids, have picnics, go for walks, enjoy the cool weather. So, David, to the question again, climate change, the climatic changes. We have 4 seasons: autumn, summer, spring, winter. But now, the last 10 years, I see summers is almost now 8 months, and hardly we get winter period, which is just 2 months. That's from December to January or March. So that's another reason I feel that even when they hear these news, they're not bothered and they just want to have the relief for 1 week in cooler places.
And that makes so much sense, right? Because you're at risk of dying from heat, or you're at risk of dying from a glacial lake burst, or but one there's a chance you won't die. The other one, it's almost guaranteed if your electricity goes out. So kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah. It puts it that really puts it in context. Thank you for clarifying that situation along there. I think it's really kind of that forced lifestyle changes that you're forced to make that actually further puts you in danger as well. And then of course then you have the commercial aspects that just taps into this as a mechanism to make money.
But that 8 months of summer, and such a short winter period, and you think of the Himalayas and the glaciers, it's a very frightening reality that people in Pakistan are facing. Years ago, I said, is Pakistan going to be the first country that has to be evacuated because of climate change? And when I listened to what you just said then, because India is obviously, it's a massive country with much sort of wider regions and variables, but yeah, the risks are just enormous now.
Yeah, we talk about these issues. It's just that the good thing is that at least youth with the social media, people know about it. It's not that people, even those community, trust me, those community I was speaking today with, those community leaders, the community that live, they're not educated, but they understand these climatic challenges. The only thing is they need hand-holding, as we speak of. They just need the right direction, the right networks, the right people to work and help them. You can prevent them as well. A lot of people, like the educated class, they did not travel. As I said, that the percentage of the tourism declined this year because there was so much warnings from the government. People from the major cities like Karachi, Lahore, that's the most like the temperature soars up. They go to these northern areas for vacations. They didn't visit this year. So it did help. It's not that it did not help, but as we speak of, a lot has to be done still, because the figures that I'm like 2060, there is a prediction, and I strongly believe in that. Karachi is going to sink. Karachi is the port, is the main trading port. It used to be the capital of Pakistan, but Islamabad was decided later on being the capital of Pakistan. So these predictions are there. Even the airport was flooded in Karachi, if you saw the news, during the monsoon seasons. So,
what's the population of Karachi, just to give people a sense?
Karachi, it's huge. The last census, I don't know when it happened. It's definitely, we're more than 30-50 lakhs, I guess, just Karachi as a city.
It's about 20 million.
Yeah, it's a huge place.
Almost the population of Australia.
Yeah, it's about 20 million. So
yeah.
I want to move on with another guest, Oliver, we want to bring on. So, but is there a last word you want to tell people?
Just wanted to a quick one with Sadaf, just the sustainable development goals, because I think we need to be putting a limit on tourism all over the world. There's a lot of new regions that haven't had the massive numbers of tourists who are now opening up to tourists, and they're going to be overwhelmed, especially if you look at the Scandinavian countries. So just wanted to get your sense from the sustainable development goals from a tourism perspective. What do you think is most important for people to be really thinking about?
In keeping perspective, the Sustainable Development Goals, I mean, the agenda was 2030, but 2030 is around the corner, and I think none of the countries we were able to achieve those targets, which we were supposed to. The most important thing is, I think, keeping sustainable tourism is that straight away we need to have eco-friendly resorts. That's the first step. And then second step is also educating people how to be a responsible tourist when they're visiting these areas. I think these two perspectives, if we manage to achieve them, that will help also preserve our natural environment in a country like Pakistan.
That's great.
All right. So now if you're going to stay with us, right?
Yeah.
For the show? Yeah. All right, cool. All right. So I'll bring us all up. And this is the first time I'm seeing Ollie's face. We usually, it's usually dark at night for me when we gather on X and talk all things climate. But welcome, Ollie.
Hi, Andrea.
Indeed.
Hi, David. Hi, Richard.
Hello.
Hi,
Hi.
Sadaf. Sorry about the muzzle getting on to start with.
No, it's all right. I've got to work out how to solve that problem.
It's like a panicky moment.
But Ollie's our first stonemason, and I think that's just interesting in its own right. But the reason I asked Ollie on is because he's one of the co-founders of the Climate Crisis Club. David, I think you've joined once. It might be a bit weird for you, but if you stick with it, it gets better.
I think Saturday is my day with my mum. So
yeah, right, yeah. Well, it's late. It's like I was on it till 4 a.m. last week. But anyway, for me, it's a great club. So if I've joined any sort of, I'll give you an example. I joined a community recently, and it was a spiritual consciousness type environment thing. And they started off with a meditation. And while the meditation was happening, everyone who was on this call was just in the chats trying to link together and connect on LinkedIn. And it was this frantic sort of noise that was going on. And I found it really funny because it wasn't really appropriate for the moment. But the other thing is, I think that there is a passion within the people who are focused on the community to find the community, to find people who think like them, because I think a lot of us feel quite alone, and no one really wants to talk about the stuff that we want to talk about because I think it's too miserable. But anyway, Ollie, tell us about yourself, then we'll get to that.
Well, first of all, it was very interesting to listen to Sadaf talking about Pakistan. And obviously, I'd be tempted to sort of leap into the whole environmental chaos, really, and the situation there, because it's terrible. I mean, obviously, we know that. And but first of all, about me, I had a troubled youth, and not crime, mental health mostly. And what I'm talking about today is communities. And I started off in a couple of communities that, if you like, were exactly what I'm going to talk a little bit about now. Not just about the Climate Club, but communities, the various types of communities around the world, and the ones that we're in, and the ones that we try and avoid in the modern age, that we're we're trying to dodge, if you like, in this rather independent, slightly kind of cut off situation that so many people find themselves in. So I had a troubled start in life, and then I went and I thought, what am I going to do? And I just thought, I'll do some sculpture, and I did some sculpture, and I thought, this is great, but I'm not going to make a living out of this, because nobody makes a living out of this. It's just not going to happen. It's not sustainable, basically. It won't happen. And so I'm not, it wouldn't be lucky like Gormley or someone like that, who sort of, lived in a squat in Islington and then suddenly found himself a kind of international sculptor. and got very lucky. No, so I went into stonemasonry. I did the full training, craft, advanced craft, even something called mastercraft, which is a little bit of a sort of funny name for it. And I've worked for the whole total is 30 years in this trade, from a lot of churches, pubs, stately homes, the odd cathedral now and then. Basically doing that kind of work, and a lot of boring work as well, like steps, because there are millions and millions of front steps that are all dying at the moment all over London. They've reached their kind of 100 to 150 year maximum, which is, if you're treading on stone for that amount of time, it's going to wear out. And they're mostly, again, this is to do with the climate, they're not very, most of these steps lead to basements, and these steps aren't waterproofed, and so they leak. And so people come to me and they say, "Stop the leaking," So I do. I have to build a whole new set of steps on top of it first. So that's the life that I've lived for the last 30 years. But during that time, I've always been very a little bit crazy about the climate, to be honest with you. From about 1984 onwards, I got very affected by Band-Aid, Live Aid, and I got affected before that by the Biafran famine back in the 70s. About 90, it was actually, I think it was sort of over by about 1970. But as kids at school, we were being bombarded by religious groups who were very involved, and it was, it was affecting. I know I'm not the only one that was affected by this, and I've said it before. A classic example was George Monbiot, who was at school with me, and he was in exactly the same age group, and he was absolutely affected by this entire kind of, how can I put it? It was a kind of faith group within the school that was part of the school ethos at the time. It was very fluid through it. The headmaster was very into it. It wasn't a bad thing. There was nothing wrong about it. It was sort of cultish or odd. It was very good. He was very affected by it. I was affected. Number of people were affected by it, and it actually went all the way through our lives. You can see how it affected everybody. It was very interesting. So anyway, for all that time, really since I was about 10, if I think about it, but particularly from about my early 20s, I've been very, very fanatical really about the climate, and that I think helped to. That really helped to sort of when the club, climate club, came along, the Climate Crisis Club. It didn't start as a club. It started as a collection of people who followed a couple of scientists, particularly Professor Michael E. Mann. And that was a kind of, if you like, that was a link point for everybody. And then we got to know each other online. And then there was a small group of people. I mean, just a few. And I know that Alex was there hammering away. He was like absolutely. He was like John Bonham in Led Zeppelin on the bass drum. Absolutely,
you'll like that.
It worked really well, actually. No, it worked extremely well. And Noreen Wise was there, and Dr. Val. Now, Dr. Val was. It turned out she was absolutely pivotal. She was there, and she was wise. She was sensible about things. She advised Alex. She said, "For goodness sakes, go on Spaces." "Do you know Spaces?" she said. And we both were like, "No, never heard of it," sort of thing. And then we just started. We just talked about it, and we just thought, yes, let's try it. So we just started. He started the space, and we got it going. And well, that's a sort of point at which things began to build really, really well, but very slowly. Yeah. It took a time. I mean,
yeah, and you dragged me into it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
You found me on LinkedIn, I think, through a book or something. Yeah,
I did. Through my friend Damien Corbett, who had a book. Yeah. You were in the book, and blah blah. And I tried a few people in the book, and one or two did. You particularly, but one or two did get involved. Some people were more involved in space travel and stuff like that, and that's fine. But Spaces was there too, and it actually started with about I think 8 to 10 people, and it was not like it is now. It was very kind of intense. Everybody talking at the same time. Everybody trying to get their bit in. It wasn't disorganized, but at the same time, it was very it was very enthusiastic, let's say. And then slowly over time, it's developed into a community that is both has regular people there more or less all the time, people who come and go, and they can be gone for sometimes for weeks, months, and then suddenly they just turn up again. They're affected by something and they come back. So it's if you like, it is a bit like a pub. You know, you can you've got your regulars and you've got people who come and go, and the tumbleweed sort of tumbles past, continues to go past week in, week out, and the sign swings outside and there's a fire burning, and this is all not what's happening there, but it feels like it sometimes. It's comfortable, it's very friendly, and above all, it's friendly. I know that Alex was very, very particular about there were a few fights early on with people, and he was very particular that we stop this fighting because it was causing problems.
Kind of online fighting, you mean? To sort of like, you're wrong, I'm right.
No, we're talking to each other, but it's because to me it's one of the biggest challenges, right? Because everyone's in a different place, and sometimes people will get on and they're quite new, they're trying to understand it, they're at the beginning, and then you've got the doomers who lost all hope, and you've got everything in between. So I was just going to ask you, like when you look at that, it's an enormous challenge, and sometimes people kick up a storm and create a hassle, and it's hard for Alex probably more than you, Ollie, but
I think so,
so I mean, because I think for people exactly, well, we all sort of message him and calm him down. But but when for other people who might be thinking about like, where do I go for community, because it can be local, it can be global, like we've got what are the biggest challenges in bringing people together that you've been seeing across the years of doing this?
Usually they're cultural. They're a typical example would be something like Gaza, for example. A Gaza-Israel problem is a perpetual problem, and that's been resolved pretty well. But
within the club.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, not in real life.
Not in real life. No, not at all. That's, but in club it has, because they find a consensus not to fight about it, and to respect each other's views, and try and find a way for it still flares up, but not usually within the club environment. But the community thing is a community, basically, I read as, I like this expression from a guy called Toby Lowe. A community is a group of people who share an identity-forming narrative. That sums it up pretty neatly, I think. So with the club, it's obvious, Climate Club, it's basically the ongoing climate crisis, which is probably the biggest issue in the world ever. I think I don't see any other issue as being quite on the scale of this one. And as you know, if you're in that crisis, it is completely all enveloping. Nothing, you cannot find a beginning or an end to it. You cannot find you cannot really find a safe place to breathe. You have to find something that settles you, but at the same time, it's such an enormous problem that most people around the world, rich and I would say, I say poor, rich and poor, actually switch it off. They have to switch it off because it's too big a problem to actually cope with. If you've been in it for all your life, I find it becomes a lot easier. It doesn't drive me crazy anymore. Now I'm much more understanding of it, and I can hold the capacity of it much more. Most people cannot begin to go there, and they will turn away. There are players out there that are worse than that. There are obviously paid trolls. I mean, I cannot understand something like being a paid troll. How can you do that? So I think basically just take the money. They just take the money and think it's just another kind of job, if you like, and I just take the money. Or there are other people who have they have their own very fixed ideas about what is right in the world, what is actually, this is the right thing. This is what I believe. This is what I'm going to go on stating. It's a very current topic, epistemic arrogance it's called. You've probably come across it a few times. And it wastes an awful lot of time in discussion. It wastes a huge amount of time in discussion because it's so... it doesn't have a beginning or an end again, and so you can argue with people about it endlessly and not get anywhere, and at the end of it you're still where you were at the start. So it's very discouraging, and that's where a community comes into it in a way that is really productive, because you've had the time to talk through all the issues slowly, and it takes weeks and months. You may only be thinking to yourself, oh, there's only maybe on a particular group, a particular Saturday, maybe 500-600 people who've come and gone, but they've taken something away with them. They've either joined, voluntarily. They've all joined voluntarily. Nobody gets pushed into it, but they've come in. They've taken something away. They've gone away. It helps their journey into understanding the problem, and it also helps them to go out and do the same thing. I suppose it's a kind of like being a missionary or something like that in a way. But it's a subject that is completely steeped in reality all of the time, and it's not even a kind of, there's no dogma to it. And it's happening. I mean, look at Pakistan and the horrors that they just endure over and over, and now they are clearly taking the situation into their own hands by purchasing solar panels en masse on a huge scale and just doing it for themselves. Usually second-hand panels that have got plenty of life in them, but are like a third or half the price of new ones, maybe less sometimes. And they're just able to plug in, and they can literally save themselves by having their own arrays. That makes so much sense. Same in India, of course, too, particularly, and I'm sure over other parts of Asia. So it's
and more robust. I mean, that's more robust than the power grid that keeps failing.
Yeah, completely. Yes, absolutely. You can.
But we've got.
So I was going to ask, how does someone join? Is this like a members club, or how does it work? And if someone wants to go,
no, just with the climate club. It's just you just come and have a listen, see if you like it, and then contact Alex. He does the processing, if you like. People.
So where do they go to listen?
Oh, what? Come, David. You know how.
No. I mean,
not for him, obviously.
Don't know, right?
No,
so,
I know. Yeah. But it's basically it's a Saturday space. On Twitter, I still call it Twitter. I'm sure people do. It's a Saturday space on Twitter. It's at 11 a.m. EST. We'll do the maths. If it suits you, it's terrible for Andrea, obviously, and it probably isn't that great.
Well, it's terrible for you guys because I have to have a drink by that point.
Yeah, that's easy. That's great. That's easy. Yeah, this time of day at 7 o'clock in the morning here. Oh no, it's sober here.
but it's also, you got to stick with it, right? It's because sometimes we talk about music, and sometimes we talk about a lot of different things. We've got a massive American Indigenous presence, which I love, because it's just a view that we don't get outside of the US. We've got Africa, India, Pakistan, sometimes Australia, where it's 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. They'll jump on. So I'm one of the few in Southeast Asia that come along, but it's a pretty widespread group. Greenland, Germany. Yeah, it's really wide.
South America, a few there, particularly Brazil. Yeah. But it's but David, to join it, you literally just click on the link and come and join the space. You don't have to. If you can even do it anonymously. We get quite a lot of anonymous.
I'm asking because I myself have never been able to find it as such. I mean, I've found the chat, but I've never found the other thing. Apart from the fact that Saturday mornings I'm with my mum, so but I don't. Right. So I'm kind of asking as a person who.
So on Twitter, just across the top,
familiar with Twitter, so I don't know how to find it.
Across the top, there's a band of chats that are happening, and you just scroll through and you'll see it.
Exactly.
But I can obviously tag you in it next time it's up.
Don't forget
what I see, for example, at the moment on Twitter is just a search bar, and I type in Climate Crisis Club as a hashtag, and it's got yourself there. And
funny.
And then there is Morton Baltus. Is that?
Yeah, that's I think that's Alex.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, there's a few.
There's a few like that. But the other thing, of course, is it's at 4 p.m. in the UK, so it's 11 a.m. EST.
Oh, okay.
So it's not actually, it's 5 hours ahead. But I always these days, if people have trouble getting in, I always suggest that they just try climatecrisisclub.org, and then you go straight into the web site, which is a newish thing. And then once you're in the website, there's a lot of links there that work. Basically, because Kim, who's really like our driving force for all things site-wise, is brilliant at that, and she was a founding member too. Really, she really come in really early, and once this kind of this small group got going, then very early on, it really expanded quite fast suddenly, and it became that proper community. It was a sort of nucleus to start with, and then it became a community. And as a community, the one of the most interesting things I find about it is this idea that people can talk about it and use the place for as a friendly place to be, and at the same time to understand the situation with a lot of the climate stuff. And it is, we have some very in-depth conversations, and there's a lot of people with a lot of knowledge there. Sometimes they fall out, people go, they come back, they go again. A lot of people do actually burn out as well. There is a burn in it. There's definitely. See it happening, and that's if somebody burns out, then there's a massive amount of support, and there's also time to sort of chill and go and come back to recover. Basically, it is the biggest problem in the world, and it takes its toll, no doubt about that. It has on me. I mean, trying to keep up with America and the American time zone is, Andrea, what it's like. It's a nightmare, really, a lot of the time. How you get around that? I've completely changed my hours, and at the same time, I'm trying to work, still working. Getting up and going out a little bit later. Thank goodness I'm an independent stonemason, and actually still getting the work done, but still keeping in with the club. It has a very diverse set of members as well. I would just say, go on, yes.
So I was going to go. I mean, so basically on a Saturday about 4:00 in the afternoon PM in London. Work out wherever that translates to. Now I know it's 4:00. I thought it was like 11 o'clock. So 11 o'clock I'm with my mum. So I look at 11 o'clock, and I didn't realize the time zone. I got the wrong time zone. So it's actually 4:00 in London, or around there, because clock's going to change, right? So is it? Which is the time is based on when we're going to get out
4. Stick to 4.
Sorry?
And just keep to 4 p.m. in the UK, because the club will go on for 6 hours, usually 5 or 6 hours anyway, and it's drop in, drop out. It's view only, but be there in person. Not view only, sorry. It's be there in person. Choose to speak if you want to speak. That's cool. A lot of people just like to sit and listen. A lot of people are very active and will go straight into the speaking at a drop of a hat. And then there's anonymous listeners as well. And I have mentioned, I think, to Alex, that anonymous listeners are fine, because if it comes up on the stats later. This is great, because this is people. Who cares if people want to listen anonymously? That's fine, because at least they are listening. At least there are people involved in it, and actually who have gone there to have a listen, and they don't have to advertise their presence necessarily, because they are there. The whole idea is to get as much expansion as possible, not just to be sort of ticking buttons, Twitter buttons, snacking up stats of what do you call it, sort of scouts, if you like, of people who are there. The whole idea is to actually change minds about this thing, and I think in its own sort of modest way it is working. Don't forget there has sprung up about 5 or 6 other groups in Twitter mostly that spaces that have sprung up around around
extensions
as well. Satellite ones.
So different languages and
but also they're different topics, but they have their own identity. They're not some kind of claustrophobic kind of like everybody's in the club all at the same time. There are different ones that are actually that have evolved, if you like, over the same time. Can I say something about the indigenous community?
Yeah,
because we had a very strong indigenous thread running through it for a number of weeks. There was a bust up, it happens, and but we've kept up with some of the people who were involved in the indigenous side of it. Robert's been particularly strong like that, and very, very, very keen. Robert Toskins, that is, who've come across obviously. And he's very keen on that, and I am too, in a quieter sort of way. It's always quieter way with me, I suppose. But the point is about the indigenous communities is I have the very strong understanding that indigenous communities in themselves hold most of the keys to getting through this. They have the knowledge, they have the understanding, they have the community above all that is particularly that has weathered thousands and thousands of years of this type of thing. Really, not such an acute climate necessarily, but they have a much better understanding about going with the flow of the Earth system itself. They're just better acquainted with it, and they've been terribly persecuted by us lot whiteys in colonial in the 500 colonial years, whatever, and yet still they will come forward and talk and are open to helping us, and vice versa, which is nice, which is a nice thing, in a modern world that seems so sort of distant and a little bit cold.
Can I ask about bus stops? I mean, it seems strange to have bus stops over a community based on the climate crisis. Is it over priorities? Is it over
bus stops? What do you mean?
Bus stops.
Yeah, it seems like it's a community of people who are all focused on the climate crisis, and it's there, it's physical, it's in front of us, and here's a group of people who actually already are, focused on it and believe it.
Can I jump in there, Ollie? Yeah, because it's an interesting one, right? So I'll give you a break from the main screen. So one of the bus stops happened when it was someone who wasn't American said something that offended one of our indigenous brothers in the US, right? And I was kind of listening to it, and it's like we can't expect everyone in every country in the world to understand every issue from every indigenous community in the world, because I look at the indigenous community obviously as an Australian, the First Peoples in Australia, but then in Asia it's a very, very, very different thing. In a lot of countries the indigenous people are the people, the colonials didn't necessarily get into every country, so it's a big and it's a complicated issue, but you've got to be very sensitive in how you deal with it, and sometimes people don't mean to get it wrong, but they do get it wrong, and so then and if they're not humble enough to say I'm sorry, then it can become a little bit, it gets out of control a bit. I don't know, Ollie, what do you think about that?
Exactly, yeah. It's a very often it's a communication problem, and it's also sometimes a personality problem as well. Somebody may just be having a bad day, and they might, it's like anything. We're atoms, aren't we, David? All right. So we're just going to collide with each other the whole time, and something's going to spark off that from time to time. And I think that's just what happens sometimes. In a way, in a funny sort of on another level, it's actually quite a positive thing, because it means something's happening. It means that there are reactions going on. People are, getting really stirred up about it. It's not. It's how can I put it? It's become. it's become more grown up as time has gone on. People have learned how to not so much avoid it, but to manage it and to keep going without there being blood on the floor, or necessarily. So it's grown very well. I mean, some of the people on the space are very good, are very trained at spotting problems and dealing with them quickly. So yeah, it's
and I think with something like this, it's such a big and complex issue. Some people are focused on a solution, and that's all they want to talk about. Whereas other people are like, well, yeah, it's a solution. It's not the solution, because there's no A, it's only the. And so some people get really kind of caught up in what they're thinking, and that becomes a bit of a problem too. But I sort of mute and have a bit of a chuckle sometimes, but just because it's all you can do. You can't take, where everyone's dealing with it in their own way, and nobody's right, nobody's wrong. We're all just in the middle of this global chaos, in every aspect of it, geopolitical, including the physical world. So it's like, and some people don't have the maturity to sort of understand that, I suppose, right?
That's it. And the Duma thing is very interesting. We had a huge fight about the Duma thing early on, and then it slowly became clear that there are different Dumas, different types of Dumas. There are Dumas who are actually really positive in that they are Dumas, but they keep going. They keep pursuing the climate. I wouldn't say Andrea is a Duma, but she's definitely got a bit of that, and that is really, if you think about it, it's very, very positive to have that Dumaism that you can actually use to drive the bus, if you like. You talked about bus stops, David, just now, and if you can have a Dumas that can drive the bus without crashing it, or other Dumas, if you like, who they might think, I can drive the bus, and they park the bus on the side of the road and they go to sleep. They say, I can't be bothered with this. I'm a Duma. It's all over, and I'm giving up. Wow, that's the worst thing you can do, in my opinion. I mean, don't give up. If you're a Duma, you cannot give up. You have to keep going. So the Dumas who keep going are the positive drivers, and the Dumas who decry, if you like, any hope for anybody, and go on about the end of the world, and then pull over and do nothing about it. They are the bad Dumas. They are the Dumas, I think, that some of the climate scientists get really upset about. They're not really getting upset about Dumas with attitude. Dumas with attitude, I think they're brilliant.
I'm just gonna bring Sadaf up because she needs to drop off and she needs to go. So I'm just gonna bring you up to say thank you so much. Really great to get your perspective, especially what's going on in Pakistan, because I think a lot of people don't really get it. So really appreciate you coming along and spending time with us, my darling. And we'll see you again. All right.
Yeah. Thank you, David. Thank you, Richard. Thank you. I have to get back to work. So thank you so much, and see you guys soon. Bye.
All right.
Have a nice
see you,
chat.
Bye. All right.
Thanks, bye.
And I'm going to bring Ollie back on. So I like Dumas. I've spent a lot of time with Dumas because I think they are the people who speak the most sense. But as I've said to Ollie many times before, they don't have any faith in humanity. That's the difference. So when I spent a lot of time with them, I was trying to work out, well, where's the hope? Where's the hope? There's got to be hope. There's got to be hope. I spent about 18 months just with them, listening. I'm like, you're not wrong, but there has to be a path. So, but I actually
is that some Dumas club that you were part of? Is that how
no, I just found them all the people, Professor Elliot Jacobson is my favorite Duma. But there's an actuarian called I can't remember. He's got a fantastic X handle. I should share it with you, Ollie. Mate, he's brutal. But
I mean, the thing about the Dumas, Leon Simon is another one, and even James Hansen has become a bit of a Duma,
Yeah, but he's behaving himself. He's not as Duma-ish as he could be. What he knows, right?
Degrees of Duminess.
Yeah. It's okay.
So am I kind of Duma?
No, you're much more optimistic than I am. So is Richard.
I'm probably the Doomer in that sense, but
I mean, is being a doomer recognizing the reality and accepting the reality, or is it?
Yeah. So no, the concept of the doomer means that they basically don't think there's any chance, and we're pretty much stuffed, right? So there's no hope left in the conversation. So that's the doomer. But if you actually listen to them, they are definitely paying attention to what's going on. They're sharing the data, but they're not sharing any solutions, even though many of them are still actively involved in community organisation and doing their part. They haven't just given up on us, but they can't. Wait a minute. You guys talk.
Yeah. So I mean, I think this is really interesting in the sense of kind of because I think a lot of people. The reason why I'm asking this is not because I'm trying to sort of say, oh, they're doomers or whatever it is, because I think most of us, we have complex motivations. We are complicated beings, and we go through periods where we're despondent. We go through periods where we're elated about things, and can be about the same thing. The switch to go from one to the other could be minuscule in that way. So there's always a degree of doom on our side, but you need a degree of doom in order to go forward too.
Yes.
Otherwise, you just stay where you are because you think, great.
Last week I shared about we've lost the coral reefs, right?
Yeah.
There is no hope that will change. There's none. It's done.
Yeah.
Since I've been watching climate scientists talking about it, the media talking about it, the headline is we may have. It's like, no, that's not what they said. We have. Just today on CNN, the corals off Florida gone. Not right now, but they're on the path to going right. From a doomer perspective, that's here you go. That's the end of it. From my perspective, it's that's about as bad news as we've heard this year. The implications are enormous, absolutely enormous for every living being on this planet, not just in the ocean. They talk about storm surge, $1 trillion impact, home risks, all that sort of stuff. But it's so much, the impact of that is so much bigger. And if we don't start talking about this stuff, like the real impact, if we don't start talking about it, we're not going to do anything about it. We're still frittering around the edges of what we need to do.
I like your comment about the word may, right? They may have died and stuff, because when I look at the press, BBC, and everything is like, it's hunky-dory. We're going to fix this. We've got this and all the rest of it. And, my kind of equivalent word in that sense is acceptance. A few years ago, Richard and I were giving this talk at these conference with sort of single family offices, big wealth kind of thing.
Big concentrated wealth.
And at the dinner after, the guy next here. Yeah. at the dinner after, the guy sitting next to me said, I really shouldn't be here. Saying why? Because this is really dangerous. I might get killed in the crossfire. But anyway, he made a point that he made the analogy to grief, and he was saying, you guys have accepted it, and so you're looking forward along with that. And the problem I find, and that's why acceptance is kind of my first step, and the problem I find with what I read is it's all in denial. We may be that, but scientists say it's still okay.
Yeah. If we just got CO2 emissions, we might do. No, that's not what it's saying. So we did a show 12 months ago where we talked about the importance of acceptance. I mentioned it on the Climate Crisis Club a lot. I don't think people really know what I mean. But to be in true acceptance, it's like no matter what happens, I saw today that in a big licensing for oil and gas in Alaska, I think, and it's just it's a shocking thing, right? But it doesn't matter what you say and what you hear. It doesn't knock you on your ass like it did when you went into because there's climate anxiety, and then there's later is climate grief, and we've all been through our climate grief, right? And sometimes you slip back into it. You do, I do. And there's weeks where I'm just like, oh, but I can always get back to a pretty equal sort of equilibrium, I suppose. And so it doesn't matter what I hear. I'm like, well, of course that's next, because I've already accepted it. But I've decided to do everything I can to fight to make sure we don't get there. And I'll keep fighting, because I know the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. But I'll keep fighting, because that's what I've chosen to do for my kids' future, for all kids' futures. And that's what acceptance to me means. Like the worst possible outcome. You've already seen it.
Yeah.
It's not pretty.
Yeah.
That's probably where we're going, but I'm going to do everything I can to make sure we don't.
Yeah, I think of it as stop wasting time on, on the fact what it is. And he's describing this as kind of, so I started looking up stages of grief kind of thing. Acceptance is the first bit in that way, or it's the last bit, or whatever it is.
It's the last bit, right?
It's the last bit.
You need to get there through anger and denial.
Yes, yeah. and so they have this thing where I started thinking that word may, your partner may have passed away. And
like, exactly.
What do you mean? what do you mean? May or may?
Yeah, the media. I mean, Richard, you were saying last week the scientists make you angry the way they speak about it. I don't feel any anger towards anyone who can't say these words as truthfully as they need to be said. In fact, there was an article on futurism. Let me find it. It was like the best headline of any media I've seen. Just give me 2 seconds to find it, and it's like finally someone's saying it exactly as it needs to be said. Come on, I'm going to find it. It's just here. No, I can't. I'll share it, but they don't know how to say it. They don't know how to, because if they do, they get attacked, and if they don't, they get attacked, and nobody wants to hear the truth. We know it.
I think from that sort of Richard trading background as such, it's kind of that stop loss, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course it may come back, but you'll be dead before that.
That's part of it, certainly. But the other aspect of doomerism as well, positive doomerism, is that what you move on to with your grief and loss is you move on to a new dawn of something.
Yeah.
Which is basically you move into a zone where we start to actually look at how we can save as much as we can save. We look at, you actually really start as a planet, and it has to be on a planetary basis. You can't just have, at the moment we have small people trying to rescue stuff, and that's good enough. That helps a lot, but you're still in the frame of a disintegrating climate. So if you have a much bigger process of trying to save stuff, like obviously trying to save the corals. I mean, how do you save a coral reef? How do you do it? Some people think you can still do it within the oceans. I don't, as a layman, I would say no, I don't think so, because the temperatures are still rising, and they're going to still kill all the corals. However, you can perhaps think about doing it on land. You can either do it in massive aquariums. I mean, that's happening already. Corals exist in massive aquariums, or you can do it in kind of research, kind of I don't know what you call them, kind of bays along the ocean where your temperature is much more. You can regulate your temperature very clearly. But that's just one aspect. You can do it with trees. The Great Green Walls. There are two of them, at least two of them. The Chinese one, obviously, and also which is not as much advertised and is highly successful, or the one in Africa. And it's not just the Sahel; it's all the way along, which has had, despite problems, has had a massive success as well for the amount of money they've spent on it. They have hardly spent anything on it. I think it's 2.8 billion so far, and it's done amazing things with very little water. However, the point is they are part of this bigger process of trying to save, trying to rescue, and trying to repair, trying to restore in many ways, but not just like for like, in order to keep the thing kind of going, just to keep the process going in the face of disasters. They're trying to do it in a way that is actually for the future, for the kids of the future. What is we know as the 7 generations. And actually, I mean, it's really a lot more than 7. It's going to be like 70 generations, really, isn't it? So
But then we're interfering with nature, right? So, those green walls that are being built. So China has reduced its emissions, which means it's less sulfates going into the air, and they've also got the big green wall, which is incredible. but they think that's responsible for warming up the Pacific. So there's always
yes.
there's always
kickback.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. Here,
yeah.
I just want to give you the two headlines, right? So here's Wired magazine. New report finds effort to slow climate change are working, just not fast enough. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I
just
saw that.
like, what? And then there's futurism. The latest climate news is so bad that you should probably not click this and just bury your head in the sand. That to me is an honest headline for the Times, and that's talking about growing CO2 emissions. It's not even talking about the 6 things that were released in the report with the tipping points, starting with the coral reef. So, it is that bad. Until we have that conversation, because when we recognize it's that bad, what does it mean? What does it mean where I live? What does it mean to my home? What does it mean to my ability to earn an income, to ability to feed my family? Because when you start actually putting it all together, that's when you start acting at the scale required to drive change from us up, because the governments aren't going to do it. Businesses aren't going to do it. We have to do it. But until we're willing to say, what does this mean to me, my family, my community? When we're still going to buy 50 new items of clothing a year. We're still going to have Christmas crackers on the dining table full of plastic shit. We're still going to eat meat. We're still going to keep doing it's still going to go on these big holidays or on these cruise ships, which are 8 times more polluting than if you went on a plane to somewhere else. We're still going to keep doing what we're doing, which is contributing to what the problem is, because there's so many of us doing it. And until we wake up to that's going to destroy the global economy. If enough of us wake up, right? We have to accept that too. That's part of the story, right? So it's
I think that's right. I think that's why, so I obviously have a hobby horse that I keep mounting on and kind of going on about it. But I feel very much that, the way towards that sort of solution, even though it's mine or whatever it is closer to what Andrea's sort of describing, because even if you had the mechanism that will fix this, and I believe I have the mechanism that will fix this, if you just go and push on that mechanism, you will fail for precisely what Andrea started describing, because there's a whole transformation of what we think of as wisdom.
Yeah.
That has to that has to lead it.
Yeah.
And the great thing I feel about all these things breaking down is forcing people to transform that, because it doesn't work. The economy doesn't serve you. If you're a young person, you're kind of stuffed. So it gives them the opportunity actually to explore. If you can accept that, because if you don't accept it, you go along and say, well, there should be more jobs for me, and I should be able to do this and that and all the rest of it.
Yeah. So, Ollie, you're okay to stay with us?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. So, Ollie's actually probably one of our most regular listeners. Yeah. So it's good. It's good having you here. So let's just quickly go into the news. So I'll just go through a few pieces that happened this week. So obviously we had the Louvre Museum heist, which was all kind of very Ocean's 11, but then also the death of Ace Frehley from Kiss, who was all of our generation. Former Australian Prime Minister is the ambassador to the US, and he's been insulted by Trump in front of the current Prime Minister, but thankfully Albanese is sticking behind him. George Santos, have you looked into what this guy got up to? Do you know?
Disgraceful.
He's the creep of creeps. Anyway, he's got his pardon. So did one of the crypto guys. And then we had a whole bunch of young Republicans sending out the most vile, sort of in a group chat, racist comments, including things like "I love Hitler." I'm like, if I had a bingo card for people loving Hitler in our future, I wouldn't have believed it. I don't get it. Anyway, Vance said, "Oh, they're just being kids. They shouldn't be punished. They're in their late 20s and 30s." Like my kids, yeah, I get it. And okay, so how's this for another media headline that I thought does not give us all too much hope in the future? Anthropic has a plan to keep its AI from building a nuclear weapon. Will it work? Oh, so there's a possibility it won't work. All right,
I mean, you don't have to use that properly. You just go to Grok.
Where are they based?
Well, yeah, exactly, right.
What country are they in? It'll go up on the pad, won't it?
All right, no King's process. Thoughts? I mean, I felt good that they were sort of potentially looking at the number that is the absolute tipping point for a society to turn against
Great.
the rulers. But anyway, thoughts?
It's going to be the farmers, not the no Kings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suspect I'm with Oliver on that one. I think they wield a bit more power. And they're not very happy at the moment.
The Manosphere too, they're turning away, so that's a good thing. So Manosphere were one of the areas that I identified as missing in my election analysis. And then the tech oligarchy. So I don't think it's in their interest to turn away. I think they'll hold on for as long as they can. But yeah, I'm with you on the farmers.
I mean, I think that you know, the No Kings protest is very much kind of US, right? So in the sense that, you know, in the UK, you obviously are not going to say the No Kings protest. And many countries in the world have actually got a king and a monarch.
I think you might actually.
so
at the moment,
down here is no tyrant. So the UK protest was called the No Tyrant protest outside the US embassy.
Interesting.
So that, you know, it's just not like you stand outside the embassy to protest against Charles.
Yeah, right.
Which a No Kings protest would be exactly what that is in this country.
So what did you think of the AI video of him dumping shit on protesters?
I mean, it's so bizarre, right? And so weird. It's on a whole new spectra of really.
I just
say. Really.
I just don't think it maybe with the MAGA crowd it resonated, but for me it just came across as, so Newsom's fantastic at trolling and doing, it's clever, you know, just the way and it's always in response to this felt very it didn't feel right. It obviously wasn't right, but it didn't feel clever. It felt just childish.
Trump had a mask on and it wasn't covering his nose. So if he'd been in a jet fighter, he'd have blacked out. Simple.
I missed that bit.
Yeah. It just wasn't on there. It was they thought we either show his face or we show it covered. The idiot MAGAs might, or whoever they are now, might not recognize it as Trump. I mean, simple. So yeah, no nose covering. A bit like with the pandemic, you know, with people with their masks on. What's the point?
David, any thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think it's an attempt to, you know, what has happened in America. So I'm going to take it back to America in the sense of what's going on there. What has happened in America is that it has had a massive erosion of all three channels of kind of power, from, you know, the houses, the law, and the presidency in that way. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this before or to someone else, but I think there was a comment by one of the Supreme Court judges about how the amount of time that they spend looking at the cases put about Trump's use of executive power is minimal. They basically just say, fine, he's okay to use it in that way, which completely kind of erases that role of the Supreme Court in that sense. So what this is in the protests, I think, is really an attempt to say, well, what else can we do in that way? Because they've indicted him. He's been found guilty of charges that actually people would find to be completely appalling. He has managed to go along and strangle the educational institutions. He has made law firms kowtow to him in every way. And so he is doing exactly what, you know, kind of, when you look at German history, has been going on in what's happening in Germany in the early 1930s. So in that way. So this is really kind of an attempt to try and bring it along. But I think the problem with it is that these protests don't bring together. And that's the big problem along there. It's like, when Oliver talks about the disagreements in the Climate Crisis Club, they are fruitful disagreements.
Yeah.
These just segregate more. So I don't think they actually are going to achieve what he wants, because it's actually... I
don't know. There was a lot of red state activity in the protests as well, so that to me gave me a bit more hope.
Yeah, but if you look at the demographics, even in the red states, it was very split. I mean, across most of America, it was very split. The electoral college is the thing that actually tips the state into red and blue, but the actual distributions themselves were very split.
Yeah. All right. So, David, do you want to give us a couple of quick news pieces before we move on?
So jobless for young people is a problem, which we know, and Hong Kong has increased, young people jobless rate, and is kind of beginning to be a worry along. So I think that's going to be a major thing as we go along through, especially with AI coming on further and further, and that's worth watching. The kind of extraterritorial strikes the US have been having in kind of like blowing up boats around the place, saying they're drug trafficking, and then just kind of saying, we say they're drug trafficking in that way. That's going to, it's triggered kind of reactions from Colombia, it's triggered clearly reactions from Venezuela and stuff. I don't think they're going to stop doing it. They're probably going to continue, and it's going to be a problem. It reminds me of Philippines. Their president, Duterte,
yeah,
who had his death squad as his answer to the drug problems. So, and I guess that sort of might go into, right-wing politicians, the world going more right-wing along.
Well, think of where Duterte is now, right? So maybe that's the future for them too.
Maybe. Well, Sarkozy's ended up in jail. So another right-wing politician, but we have a new right-wing politician coming along in Japan, Takaichi, who is the new woman, supposedly, cracking the glass ceiling by being right-wing. So maybe that's the only way to crack the glass ceiling in that way through. That's an interesting perspective, because Hillary Clinton never got anywhere. Even the UK's kind of left-wing female politicians never got anywhere in that way either. The right-wing ones did. So that's the kind of thing. And of course, we all I found this through Canva the other day. I was trying to open up my Canva to work and found that it didn't, because Amazon services went down. And the thing about it that people don't quite realize is very often is it's like, around where I live in London, there are a number of main roads that go east-west. One of them go down, the other ones all pile up because traffic has to go somewhere. So even if you don't think you're affected, you're affected. And that's kind of like the climate crisis. Everything's so connected along. So when Amazon goes down, everything else gets affected along with that too. I think that's worth bringing along there.
Yeah, that's going to be, it's a big part of the story. So, but the message is, if you want to become a female politician, become a hard-ass bitch. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, noted. All right. So we talked about the global economy last week, and Richard, you gave us sort of your take, and David jumped in as well. So I always really value this. So there was a video on DW. I can share it, DW News, which is German, and it basically talks about France's economic crisis, and it asks the question: is all of Europe at risk? So I wanted to get Richard's thoughts on not just the video, but just the bigger story.
Well, I think Europe is at risk. And if we rewind back to, when we formed the EU in the post-World War II era, I believe de Gaulle once said something like, Europe is France and Germany, the rest are just tidbits. And, on one level, he's absolutely correct. But I don't think that's necessarily the kind of path that will ensure EU's future existence. But it's pretty clear that the Axis powers of European power will remain France and Germany, not Club Med or Britain.
Britain left.
But Britain's left, but still wants to be kind of part of Europe, but maybe not or whatever. But the axis of power is France and Germany, and the reason EU was created was effectively that France, as a former colonial power that had been bashed in the war and kind of had lost significance, wanted to remain on the main stage as a player. This is my take, by the way. That's why EU was founded. And Germany knew they were the pariah of the world. So the only way they would find a way back to become relevant again was by joining forces with another amalgamation of countries. And kind of the Italians tagged along.
The EU.
Yeah, but it's kind of what it is. The Italians tagged along because they do, and then we kind of we added other bits as it kind of came about. But that's the foundation for the EU. And it means to me, in real economic terms, that EU can survive fairly well putting out fires in the periphery like Greece. It's not a big thing, actually. Iceland, which is not part of EU, but it's part of Europe. So we can cope with those things. If Portugal was to have a major hiccup, we can deal with it. Italy, it starts becoming serious, and Spain as well, as would probably in some form Scandinavia do. But what EU cannot afford is a major economic or political meltdown in one of the two Axis countries, because then EU ceases to function. And what I think the German program wanted to highlight is now how close France is to that situation. And they did it obviously in a kind of foreigner looking at the French situation, but it's well worth watching for anyone with a passing interest, which should be all of us, in how the future will shape for Europe.
Yeah, but isn't the problem, the fact that Europe is aging?
Well, of course it is.
That's why.
It's like, if you look at the whole situation in Europe with an economist's eyes, with any reasonable actuarial mathematical view, it's that Europe now needs a serious jolt of massive immigration, and we're doing everything we can to fight it. Try to square that up. Japan is exactly the same.
Yeah, and the right wing is preventing any immigration, right? So that's the aspect of it. And
but the left wing is not exactly endorsing it either, right? So you're left with kind of a liberal center that kind of tries to push the economic arguments, and they get drowned out by whoever is shouting the loudest, which is typically the left or the right. And that's, in economic terms, Europe is heading for disaster. Because
so basically, France is simply a canary. It's not.
Exactly. But France is not a canary-sized bird.
Canary.
Yeah, right.
France is like the big goose in the playground. If France goes down,
yes. I can see how, going back to the comment about the bus stop, how the language could trigger bus stop here.
Yeah, right? It's for me, it's very simple. If France goes down, EU is over. You will get a complete fracture and split, because then there is no point of having it.
But when you say if, are you saying, is that like the maybe we were talking about?
No, France is in a precarious situation, but unlike the climate, it's still manageable. You can still find ways of actually going back and restoring some resemblance of normality. But
is it really though? I mean, is it's kind of like the economic situation, with the pop? It's not going to get younger, is it?
No, it's not going to get younger, and you will have structural problems that prevent explosive growth for a long time. But actually, the French demographic situation is much better than Italy and Germany. Much better.
Yeah, because it had immigration.
Because it has immigration.
Yeah. But they won't work beyond 62, which is part of the problem, right?
That is part of the problem. It's like you go back to when we set up these welfare states. It's like, it's a moving target. It was fine to retire at 62 when life expectancy was 68, It's not fine to retire at 62 when life expectancy is 85. It's like it presents a little bit of problems for whoever is footing the bill. And either you reform, but that's kind of, for me, where it becomes interesting in terms of French reforms. So I worked and I lived and I traded through Sweden in the early 90s when we pushed 500% interest rates on the economy, which, by the way, is an interesting experiment. Yeah. But the aftermath was very cataclysmic. The early rendition of the ERM, blew up. Sweden had to leave the mechanism, just like Club Med and Britain. And in the aftermath, Sweden effectively at the time was running the largest ever budget deficit the OECD had seen. And it was totally unsustainable. And the reformation of the early rendition of the welfare state took place with the regime change in 1994, where the sort of center-right government got replaced by a center-left government. And it very much, in my mind, resonates that I only think you can get serious change to outdated and obsolete welfare systems because the economics have changed from the left. I don't think you can ever change them from the right, because the elements on the left-hand side will rebel against it until they bring it down. And the right-hand side normally typically don't understand how to formulate the most important aspects of what the welfare state should provide, which, by the way, I totally agree with. I think you should have, a structure that allows a minimum level of welfare to citizens. What Europe and the West is facing is an uneconomic situation. We cannot continue to provide these services, and you need to reform it. And France, now being the goose-shaped canary in the coal mine, is telling us that you need reform if you're going to survive. How do you go about it? Personally, I think that change can only come from the left, not from the right.
Just to put it in some context, I mean, the French government deficit is about $160 trillion. Sorry, 60 billion euros. It's not that much in that way. But the total revenue for the government is about 480 billion or something. So it's like a third of it. So
wasn't it 100% of GDP or something?
That is about 100% of GDP, which obviously is way above what Europe was founded on with a 60% deficit. But
that's the debt, right? That's not the budget deficit.
No, that's the debt.
Okay.
But it's not the debt. You can own a big house with a huge debt.
As long as you can service it, you're kind of okay.
But it's how much you bring in versus how much you spend.
Yeah.
That's the deficit. That's your problem.
Yeah.
It's in the roof usually.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. And that's what this is, right? It's the leak in the roof. This is the bit that's constantly paying out over what you bring in. And if it's a third of what you bring in, then you're kind of in trouble.
It's interesting listening to the economics. It's of course, that politicians, when they're presented with a climate crisis problem, anything to do with the environment or nature or the climate, and then they are presented with an economic paper, the politicians will look straight away at the economic picture, and usually anything about the climate goes out the window. It just that goes by the board. And it is interesting. Economics is compelling. It's absolutely compelling, and I don't see us getting any better without a combination of the two. And I certainly don't see Europe getting better without a really good, thorough intake of migration. Really good, solid migration, particularly from Africa. Because if Europe can continue, or let's say go back, if you like, and actually develop much better, much greater relations with Africa on a much more migrated basis, we could really, Europe could really haul ass. You know what I mean? It could really.
But it's not going to do that if the right wing sort of pops in, right? All right, so I'm going to move on to the next question. The next bigger theme. We'll skip past a couple, but we've talked about food security and food inflation a lot, and how it's going to become worse, right? So There was a story this week that Penguin and Club bars, so these are all British stories, but I think they're relevant everywhere. So Penguin biscuits are the inferior cousin of Tim Tams, Australia's Tim Tams, just in case you don't know.
Whoa!
I got 3 POMs here, or 3 people living in the UK here, so I'm sure that's going to get a response, including from my husband. But anyway, basically, what's happened is the cocoa has had massive impacts from a climate perspective in Africa, and so what they're doing is they're replacing it with chocolate flavors, which just sounds horrible to me. But anyway, what concerns me about this is one of those alternatives is palm oil. And I live in the palm oil plantation of the universe out here in Asia, and it's a revolting monocrop that creates massive deforestation. So the climate is causing the chocolate to the cocoa beans to not be available and to increase in cost. So they're replacing it with palm oil, which is causing deforestation and ecosystem loss and all that sort of stuff. So it's not a good thing. In David shared a piece, orange juice in the UK, it used to be 76p for 1 litre, and it now costs £1.79, and that's a rise of 134% since 2020, and it's gone up 29% just in the last 12 months, right? So why? There's lots of different reasons. So first of all, there's a disease among the crops, and we know that particularly in Florida, which is where a lot of the oranges for juice comes from, as well as across Latin America. Extreme weather, over-reliance on supply from a single nation. We've seen that with the Cavendish bananas, and new rules for packaging and complexities around trade wars and Brexit. So it's not just one thing, and that's important. But there was a bigger piece. I can't see where it came from, but basically, household staples, including butter, coffee, milk, and chocolate, are driving food inflation. So these items make up 11% of the grocery sort of buy, but they account for nearly 40% of all of the inflation. Just a minute.
Oh,
Coffee.
Coffee.
My turn this week. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, these are big. So milk, butter, beef, chocolate, coffee, and olive oil. So I bought olive oil when they first got hit a few years ago, and we're still going through that olive oil. If I went and bought it now, it'd probably be at least double. So, this is one of you guys jump in and
but what you're describing is very, very troubling. It brings back one of my favorite, things to bash, which are central banks, right? Because I really, really do not like what they're up to. What you're describing is what most of us would describe as pocket inflation. This is what people are experiencing day out, day in their daily lives. Food is pretty important for us to actually continue to live and do things, but it's conveniently excluded from when central banks are looking at inflation, and they like to talk about core measures of inflation. That's not actually relevant for people at large. The most important item in the whole inflation is actually food, followed by energy, which they also conveniently exclude. Because that's what people feel on the street, in their homes, on their journeys,
Why do they exclude it?
Why do they exclude it? The reason they exclude it, and the reason why it's madness to exclude it now, is because food and energy are subject to fluctuations. And in the time past, at the days when central banking rules were basically kind of sculpted, these fluctuations are kind of seasonal fluctuations that you have. But in today's world, they are largely driven by climate, which is not changing. So these fluctuations are now permanent as such. So it becomes idiotic to hold on to a set of rules that's based upon a world where the climate never changes.
Yeah.
And think that central banks should basically go and enforce a world where the primary belief is the climate will never, ever change.
Right.
It's bonkers. It's very well put, and it's absolutely bonkers. But psychologically, the damage it does to the electorate is that you feel the inflation while the central bank is telling you there is none.
And the consequence of this is the policy ends up becoming too easy.
Yeah.
So it encourages more demand when the genuine production of real resources are getting harder.
Yeah.
Olive oil in Greece.
Yeah.
Fires.
Yep.
That was the one I noticed.
Exactly.
The huge fires, the whole crop got burnt. Olive trees are not exactly something you just grow overnight. And then watching people in the supermarket with me, on a Sunday, looking at the shelves of olive oil in disbelief and thinking, hang on a minute, the price has doubled. It's just doubled. Yeah. It's come down a tiny
tomatoes.
bit.
Tomatoes.
And what happens
oranges in Valencia after the floods, it's like,
And what happens when central bank have easy policy? In other words, that the interest rates are low, so that it's possible to try and cope with this by borrowing a bit more money or actually printing some money along in those ways, is that resources end up becoming distributed by money. It becomes the case that the one with the most money is the one who's able to access the resources. Yeah. So that actually ends up creating even more panic and creating the wrong situation.
But that pressure is now moving up into the middle class, into the higher middle class. It's impacting more pockets, right? That's going to create.
Yeah, because climate change is real. I mean, that's the reality. It will impact everyone. So when you say it's moving up into that, it's just a reflection that climate change is not what this news story says by 2100, whatever it is, and so on. Yeah. It's here and now. It's that reaction when you look at your shelf of olive oils and you think, Christ, that's doubled.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go and pick it up anyway because you think, you know what, maybe I can figure something out.
It may happen.
The
price may come down.
No, but it's the absolute poster child for believing that we can outrun climate change.
Yeah.
And the enablers are your friendly central bank.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So there's another story on the food one, and then we'll move on to the next, but which I thought was really interesting. Again, it's the UK. So basically, if you buy a packet of sausages in the UK, it's going to cost you 3p more. And people are saying, bad timing, badly planned, right? So this is a classic example of what's going on, right? We're creating an enormous amount of waste. Our councils can't cope with it. Well, if we're in countries where we're lucky to have councils, Singapore, by the way, when it comes to this sort of stuff, it's like world class. If the system that's here, even though it's not, everything's incinerated, right? So let's be clear, right? But what they've done is they've introduced this new law where the company the sausage manufacturer, or whatever they call, not butcher, because it's not a butcher, it's like a factory. They're responsible for the waste. Now, this is what needs to happen. What we need to start to pay more for what we buy, all the way through to the end of its life cycle. And so, like when we buy a TV, they need to be expensive again. They're cheap, right? But then they don't last, and they're cheap. So we just buy another one. We buy another one. It's more expensive to get it replaced. And then there's nowhere for that waste to go, right? So now what this law is basically saying the manufacturers are responsible. So I do something where I have addresses I have a document with addresses locally. I did it in Thailand too. And the address is Circular Economy Department. And I send everything back to the manufacturer. So printer cartridges, right? Incredible amount of technology. I'm not just going to chuck that in the bin. I'm not. It horrifies me, that we just chuck stuff like that in the bin. So I send it back. I don't know what they do with it at the other end, but I'm making my little point. But the timing is really poor in this case. So inflation is up, and people are struggling. And now they're saying, well, this is really badly thought out. I don't think it is. It's just bad timing because they've waited so long to do something that people are in a more financially, well, it's bad timing as far as people are struggling, and now they're saying, now you're going to make me pay more.
Exactly. That's the failure to accept. There is no right timing anymore. You're in a situation where actually, if you keep waiting for it to be better before you do something, you're just going to be swamped and buried under everything else.
Exactly, the problem's just going to get worse, right?
So this idea is an attempt to use an old language to attack a government on a policy. It's simply to go along and claim there is good timing and bad timing. It's again back down to the same sort of ignoring the total inflation, looking at the core inflation. It's an attempt to say there's a timing to how we manage our policy. We want to go and make our policy in the right time and not be driven by the fluctuations around. We live in a world of fluctuations now. There is no good timing.
Flux. Yeah, we're in flux.
We are exactly that. The flux capacity.
When you look at individual waste and its increase over the last couple of decades. So waste is managed by councils. People pay a council tax in the UK or whatever it's called, wherever you are. So you pay an amount of money, and that's part of that's for waste disposal, right? In the UK, you've got councils are going bankrupt, so they can't do it. We've got colonial waste in this part of the world that's just seeping back into waterways and out into the ocean and poisoning everything. Nobody wants to pay more council tax or council fees. Nobody wants to pay any more, but our individual consumption has increased so dramatically that nobody is capable of dealing with it. And that's why we're in the situation we're in. And it's going to cost us more money, and we need to accept that, and we need to stop being as wasteful as possible. But we can't be perfect either, because the whole system is designed to produce waste.
But the problem is to try and put it back in terms of the cost, because what happens is you just create more. You end up what the consequence of this is you end up pricing scarce capacity, access to scarce capacity by money. Just the same as I was saying earlier, you end up pricing you end up determining access to resources, genuinely needed resources, by money, both of which are bad, both of which would actually make the situations even worse. The way to deal with waste is don't collect it as often. You're going to have to figure out how you're going to live with it and all the rest. We had Tobias a few weeks ago, who was able to turn organic waste into fertilizer in 24 hours.
Yeah.
That's a process that you can have in an apartment block.
Yeah.
If you didn't collect it, you will end up driving people towards that. And then you're not after how do you actually buy the access to the collection of waste. You begin to actually create and innovate with what you have.
Yeah.
And we don't think like that, because our conventional thinking is it will all be looked after and we don't have to use our agency in order to think. And that's why it's money, because money allows us to do that. It's a hubristic money where we believe we can create things and solve one problem, ignore, as Chetan was describing, create two more.
Yeah.
And of course, polymers, the amount of different polymers out there. Sal, really bad at names, gave us a really good talk about this many months ago. It's such a complex issue, plastic. Maybe because there are so many different polymers that all clash and cannot be combined, and they don't even know the poisons in them and the toxins in them. They don't even know what's going on in them. But most of all, they cannot cope with the recycling and repurposing of them, because there are just so many different types. It would behove producers to actually make a much clearer method of marking their plastic as a certain type of polymer in the first place. That was always identifiable from the use, from the starting use, right through to the being chucked out by us, so that they can actually stop the polymers properly. I don't actually think that plastic packaging has got much more of a future anyway. I think other materials are going to take over, particularly mushrooms. Mycelia is going to be is already pretty massive in this field, and it's perfect for it. So
do you know what I'm most hopeful for? the Chinese have taken on bamboo to create single-use packaging, and you know, when the Chinese put their money behind something, I think they've got the greatest chance. There's two more things I want to talk about before we wrap up. Number one is where obviously you guys must be absolutely overwhelmed with coverage on Prince Andrew and the family, but Victoria, I don't know how to guifer her memoir. So a former prime minister, and on Democracy Now, if you're not watching Democracy Now, they do a really good job. They do some really good interviews with some people who are worth listening to. The ghostwriter did an interview with her, and this former prime minister was an absolute animal. And they said who it was, but I'm not going to say who it was, because I've heard the name said by other people, but you know, we don't want that attention attracted to us. But number one, what a brave bloody lady. Like, amazing. Like, she was the first to stand up. But number two, I want to ask you guys, are we finally going to get to the point where this sort of comes out? Do you think the pressure's building enough that because I mean, oh, mate, you look at the people that are involved in this, but you know, the New York Times piece, which was from the ghostwriter, said the burden placed on sexual abuse survivors, it basically it shouldn't have to continue to be that way. The people punished the most, Sarah Ferguson, a female, for sending an email. I don't know what she did.
Two emails.
But apparently there's all sorts of nasty stuff there. But are we getting to the point where we're going to see some accountability, whether it's Prince Andrew? I know I put Prince in the show notes because I don't know, will he lose it? Who wants to share thoughts?
Well, I don't think he can be called Prince Andrew anymore, so that's a good thing in a way. I think that you know, I think I don't think we are at that point, to be blunt about that, because I think that the interests, it's back down to the No Kings, the protests and all those things. I think we are unfortunately in a very nasty era where our political governance has been captured basically by very kind of self-serving interests, and the media has as we know, we talked about in that way, through the social media and the nudging processes that goes on, is able to actually change that, and the courts no longer serve the law. I think that's really important to actually realize. The courts no longer serve the law.
Scary.
Even in the UK?
So I don't think that can come out across the world. I think you're going to find you're finding when you look across the world, they just aren't actually, you know, kind of back in the day, as it were. You know, the courts were the unbiased. You know, here's the law. This is what it says. This is what we do with that. Here, the judgments ends up having nuances, and those nuances ultimately ends up being determined somewhat by what's going on in here and there, and this particular in the US, you know, I just don't see how you're going to get that, especially in the US, in that way. You can go and do a leak and have it leak out there, as it were. It would disappear off the media.
No,
it would just disappear off.
I've just posted the Democracy Now video. I think if anything, you're just watching that. I'm not a royal gossip person. I don't care about that sort of stuff, but I think this is important. Anyone? Ollie, do you want to say anything?
Dufresne. She's Dufresne.
Yeah.
Virginia Dufresne.
Yeah. It's with the G, right? That's why it confuses me.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it's odd. But I do, because it's strange that very quietly the King and Queen Camilla, they took off and they just went and prayed with the Pope after 600 years or thereabouts. Was it 600?
Yeah, 500. Yeah. The Reformation.
Years.
Yeah.
And that's a very interesting, as part of that story, because he was escaping from the Andrew thing, really, to do that. It was like something positive to do. It's a real positive thing. I mean, and at the same time, the whole abuse thing, of course, I mean, the Catholic Church, I know very well from, my working career, a lot of it was for the Catholic Church. And there was a lot of covering up sexual abuse by priests, a hell of a lot of it, I can tell you. Basil Hume was really good at covering up. Poor old Tarmac Forecourt, who came after him, it really fell on him. It was tough for him, but they did have a kind of dealing method with it. That's for sure. So it did go through, and now the Catholics are real kingmakers. I mean, if we're talking about kings, they are kingmakers. It was very much the king, the king and queen going to visit the Pope, and I think that was very interesting. And they are, as we know, they are a huge and enormous body of support for the climate crisis. Generally, I think they are probably the biggest fan club that we could possibly have. They just need to press the button, and activate the machine, get all the priests in all the parishes to spread the word to their flock and get them all wired up and going on the climate crisis, and it could make a huge difference. I'm sure.
1.4 billion people, right? Yeah, absolutely.
I
think it's one of the best, and the interfaith coordination that he's showing as well, Pope Leo. I think when the doomers say there's no hope, I'm like, no, we could have like 2 billion, 3 billion people activated through their church, mosque, temples, because I think it's one of the best things we've got. But then we're also in this other weird world of religion, fundamentalism sort of around the world, in times of crisis, right? We see it in the US, we see it in India. It's like, that side of religion is kind of rearing its head. That's not good. But
it is a positive that they did that, and it was partly caused by the problem, what they call it, the Andrew problem.
Apparently the Queen was quite so we've had Robert here, and he said he wants to come on another show, and we're going to try and get you back, Robert, I promise. We've got a pretty packed agenda till the end of the year, but one final thing, and we might not have time. Richard, did you have a chance to watch Ian Bremmer's State of the World video?
I'm sorry.
Oh, you didn't?
No,
no, that's okay. He does it every year. I don't know if do you guys listen to Ian Bremmer? G0?
Rarely, I will have to confess. I think I watched it like once or twice. Just lack of time. No, actually, it's fine and very good in bits and pieces, but it's just a lack of time. The constant fight you have on your hands is fighting time.
Yeah, Ollie, did you have a chance? Because he does a State of the World every year, right? And he's speaking in Japan. Yeah. But okay, so I did an AI summary. I don't do it very often, but his message to everyone, the US allies, is invest in self-reliance. So he talked a lot about that. Building long-term capacity and strengthen domestic capabilities, right? Reinforce stability, focus on internal economic and political resilience, assert diplomatic leadership, and he's talking about the unreliability of the US. Regain competitive position, increase productivity, investment and defense spending, and then develop hedging strategies. Don't rely solely on US commitments, build new communities. And there was another interesting piece around Asia's opportunity on that building new communities front, especially in this region, because this region's incredibly powerful now. Strengthen bilateral relationships and prepare for turbulence. And I think, if there's one message that keeps coming through, even if people want to put their heads in the sand, prepare for turbulence.
Absolutely.
Brace for impact.
And he's spot on with the not only perceived but now tangible unreliability of the US, in the sense that one thing I will give Trump 100% credit for is raising the issue of defense spending, and you can't have free riders if you want to be part of the protectorate of the world. Historically, going back, US was happy to foot that bill. by being the undisputed leader and effectively having the rest of NATO kowtowing to what they decided. And every now and then they would send a bill, like after Desert Storm, and say, this was it cost us. But it was actually the Saudis that footed most of that bill for the war. That changed. And I think Trump is trying to kind of do the impossible, getting other people to pay their share, but without diminishing US influence. I don't think that will work. I think part of the US influence clearly came from the fact that they were footing the bill. Now, that means you now have a much more unreliable ally that's in there, that's still the leader and the perceived leader and everything else, but you're not quite sure what this leader will do. So it makes absolutely perfect sense for you to find ways and create other alliances that will help you in case US unreliability becomes so tangible that you need to sever ties down the road. And I think you need to explore those possibilities. And for me, the obvious, grand coalition in the world would be EU and China.
Ooh, perfect.
Yeah, because China would throw Putin under the bus tomorrow and the war would end. If it meant a massive trade agreement and closer economic cooperation with Europe, then Putin is gone.
Sounds good.
See, I think China's keen on Russia because of the land. It's north of China. It's basically unfarmed land, and the only people who've tried to farm it are Chinese migrants. So I actually think China is banking on its neighbor being a possible, because if you look especially in the south of China, the extreme heat events, and you look at the flooding events, and you look at the extreme weather events that are impacting China, they're going to have to secure land for their 1.4 billion people. So I actually think their alliance with Russia is more, because they're always thinking in the long term. I think it's looking at migration possibilities for their nation. And every now and again you'll read something about it. It's pretty hard to find anybody talking like that, but you just, from a practical perspective, why is America looking at Canada and Greenland up north? We've talked about it before, right? For me, China, absolutely. What's up north? It's Russia. And it's melting, and there's a lot of land that hasn't been farmed, and they're losing crops to a lot of extreme events.
That wouldn't change that Chinese outlook, even if you reformed Russian leadership. Actually would make it more likely. At the moment, China in some ways need a little bit of Russian oil, but they're almost out of that dependency by finding other sources. The moment they have managed that.
Solar.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
nuclear.
The renewable rate of progression in China is incredible. And the moment they wean themselves off the need for Russian oil, they will start viewing Russia more or less like they view North Korea, a real nuisance that's just distracting them from achieving their longer term aims. But they're also very cognizant of the trade ties they have with Europe and the still dependency they have for importing higher end European industrial machinery, etc. So, and for European manufacturers, China now, was very interesting. We had numbers this week that Germany, for the first time, had more trade with China than with the US. And that's kind of a harbinger of the importance in the world. So for me, the grand coalition there makes perfect sense, because it would end the war in Ukraine, like tomorrow. Without Chinese implicit support, Putin is gone.
Sounds great.
All right, Ollie, any final thoughts?
Great. Oh, well, I see the Chinese as being brilliant at overseas investments anyway. I mean, they're huge in Africa, of course.
Yeah.
And I would eventually see China, Europe, and straight through to Africa as being the ultimate kind of link. Africa, obviously, the wild card, because it's a little bit...
it's explosive.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, it's a huge resources, not just to extract, but also to invest in. And they've got... South Africa is just waiting to be organized better as well. So, I just could see China, Europe, and Africa, the whole thing. That could work for me. But
and the rest of Asia.
Well, that is part of it as well, isn't it? It's a huge kind of banana of countries that comes all the way around, and it would really be something to celebrate. But that's all good future stuff, isn't it? That's all as in a doomy way. That's something to look forward to. Yeah.
Yeah.
We need that. Doomers need that.
As long as the heat doesn't get us first, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So, final question: what's keeping you guys distracted? Richard, do you want to go first?
Happy to. It's still Christmas, by the way. I'm just sorting out a very extensive traveling schedule for me, the family, everything around it. It is. I mean, I built some few spreadsheets in my day, but this one has so many moving parts. It's. But I think we're almost there. So by next week, it will be nailed down.
I had some Dutch friends, and their Christmas celebration for me was just so weird because it went for so long, and it was very hibernating sort of cultural
Cozy
tradition as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for an Australian, it's like don't get it. The Poms aren't like that, are they, Ollie? Yeah, no, you guys aren't that obsessed, right?
No, I'm. Right now, I'm gearing up for, it may show slightly, Movember. I'm doing Movember this year.
It may show slightly.
Slightly.
I'll check if I'm allowed.
I'm doing
right, yeah.
That's my distraction.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice. Yeah. It's not a good time for females in the world. In November, it's for a good cause, but it's not that pretty. All right, so if you want to have a bit of a giggle, which I'm always up for, we rewatched Vacation, the new version of Vacation, which I watched when it first came out because I'm a big fan of the original Vacation. With what's his name? You know how I mean. Vacation, right?
Yeah.
The comedian.
Yeah, I know it, but I don't know his name. But I know it. Yes, yeah.
I can see his face. Anyway, no, not Jim Carrey.
No, not Big Carrey. The other one.
Watch the new one again, and then we watch the original. I gotta tell you that still holds. The other thing we watched is a new series on Netflix. I'm going to have another drink. Just a minute. You guys can talk about the Grinch.
No, there was who's the guy? He's an older guy, and I'm sure it's him. That's the Vacation guy.
I know who it is. I can kind of see the face.
Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase.
Yes, Chevy Chase.
Sorry, I'm just. It's this. Boys giving me illness. Right. Another series that I want to recommend is Victoria Beckham on Netflix.
Okay.
I got to tell you, the British media are the nastiest media in the bloody world. You are so horrible to your people, especially to the women. Yes. I watched that. I didn't want to watch it because I saw the Beckhams, and that was enough for me. But it's her journey to becoming a successful fashion brand owner and all the challenges. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant. It really is. And I admire her.
She lives around here. In the posh bit. She's in the posh bit around here. You see her sometimes. You do. You see her sometimes. She's a very slim, quiet lady. Obviously, very determined. My God, yes, done well. Thinking about Spice Girls. I mean, this is much better what she's doing. She's got real talent as well.
Yeah, but that transition from Spice Girls to this, they tell that story and how she was lost for a long time, and
really,
just being a young lady with all that judgment about because she didn't smile. And she was, it's worth watching. And I think the way women are treated in the media and on social media has always been an issue, but it's an issue that we need to overcome. So. I recommend
BBC, it. Andrea. It's the BBC. They're just a nasty outfit, and they're very poor on climate as well. They very much dodge it. They sort of talk about it as though it's a sort of we've done with that now. We'll move on to the interesting stuff. Let's talk about the tennis, or something like that.
It may be a problem.
Yeah, maybe. Oh yes, very much so. Yeah.
I think they've fallen into a trap of trying to make news into entertainment.
Yeah.
And historically, BBC was seen like a bastion of perhaps a bit of boredom, but also of objective reporting. And now I think they're trying to dress news up as entertainment. I think it's a massive failure on their part, and I'm sure they will lose their audience.
Becoming more Fox.
Yeah, because if I want to watch entertainment, there's so much else I can watch than the news, right?
I don't watch much telly at all, to be honest. No. I've got to be frank. I mean, there's so much social media that I have to deal with the club and so on.
Yeah,
I think I actually have got the Netflix on my thing, but I don't bother with it. It's weird, isn't it? I'm not going to be lured in by it. I've got better things to do.
Just an hour or two a day. It would
be nice. It would be
just
nice,
switch off. That's it. Yeah,
it would be nice.
All
I
right.
don't want to watch the algorithm stuff on BBC, to be sure. Yeah.
All right, Ollie. Thanks for joining us. It's been really awesome. Thank you for
great to have you here. Yeah.
David had to jump off because he had something going on.
Good
to see you.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to be talking about just people who are working in the foundations, the charitable, sort of, those sort of big industries, the aid industries. So I think we're going to be doing that. So apologies for the cough.
I wish
something's going through Asia at the moment.
It's horrible,
weather, isn't it? Humidity.
Horrible. Yeah. That's consistent.
Yes.
Anyway, we'll see you in a week. And Ollie, thanks. I'll see you on Saturday night.
Thank you for being here, Ollie.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.